Daniel DTM Flores, also known as Delta Tango Mike, is an Atlanta based Chicano multidisciplinary 2D artist and community leader with over 2 decades of experience in digital and traditional art. Born in East LA and deeply inspired by Aztec mythology and Chicano mural culture, DTM specializes in character art, vector illustration, comics, and fine art murals. His work has been exhibited at Atlanta's High Museum of Art as part of the Art, Beats, and Lyrics exhibition and featured in Imagine FX magazine. A sought after digital art educator and Adobe community expert, DTM frequently speaks and leads workshops at major industry events like Adobe Max. He is also the co founder of the nonprofit Art is King, dedicated to teaching artists the business skills needed to thrive. When he isn't developing indie comics and mobile games under his visual artworks brand, or occasionally appearing on screen in shows like AMC's The Walking Dead, DTM can be found with a stylus in hand, mentoring creators and sketching out his next big idea. Please welcome to Drawing from the Soul, Daniel DTM Flores.
Thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah, and you know what? Over the years, for all the years that I've known you, you've always reached out. You've done interviews on me. You've always invited me to events to speak to other artists, upcoming, aspiring artists, and you've done a lot in the community and beyond. Just helping young people, I guess people of all ages, to fine tune their craft and even better yet, the art business mentorship I felt was really important because, just dealing with contracts, I guess helping people to price their art or own what they do, own what they create. That's something that a lot of artists, they either stumble over or they don't really focus on. But I'll let you share that aspect. But thank you for coming on the show. And as I'm continuing to branch this thing out and build, it's an honor to have you and to have you share from this perspective. So for those who don't know, DTM, can you break it on down? Floor is yours.
My name is DTM, Delta Tango Mike. That is my artist name. You can call me Dan. I told Dawood that you can call me Dan because we've known each other for a long, long time. And but Delta Tango Mike is my call to art. And I know we'll get to the past and some memories and stuff, but I was in the Marine Corps. And so when I was in high school, anybody named Dan or Stan or whatever, something similar to that, they're the man. And so as a kid in high school, I was rapping. I thought I was going to be like the first Mexican rapper. And this is in the 80s. And so,
You had a good chance at it then.
and I used to write a little poetry, a little bit of rhymes. They weren't good, but it's not hard to write. And so kids in school would call me Dan the Rapping Man. And by the time I got to my senior year, they just said Dan the Man. And I was cool with it. And then I joined the Marine Corps. And when I was in the Marine Corps, I didn't want to tell people I was an aspiring rapper or anything like that. So I just said Dan the Man or DTM. And then one day, this dude's walking by. He says, Delta Tango Mike. And he keeps on walking. And it hit me. It hit me. I was like, you know what? Like, I like the sound of that. And that's the phonetic alphabet in the military. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and so on. And I was like, that's it. From now on, that's it. I'm signing my name, Delta Tango Mike. That's my name. Don't call me nothing else. And so I've been Delta Tango Mike ever since, man.
And this is the 80s?
Yes. I know in the 80s when I went to high school, in the 90s when I was in the Marine Corps. Yeah, right before coming to Atlanta.
See, I didn't even know you in the Marine Corps, so that's another layer we need to investigate.
Don't hey, like I said, I looked at you, brother.
But well, okay, so let's say for people who, they don't now they know your title. Um, what about, what you've been giving the world and what people know of you?
What I do now is 30 years as a professional artist. I started my art career drawing logos and tattoo designs on paper, handing people a piece of paper like, okay, well, here's your logo. You write it, you draw it on with pencil, and you're like, do you think that's a logo? And this was in the early '90s. And as a matter of fact, when I was in the Marine Corps, I used to like, I grew up with in a family of merchants, so buying and selling is a natural thing. And so when I was in the Marine Corps, I was in a unit and they had a logo for the unit, and so you can get shirts. And so I decided to create shirts, but with a drawing on the back. And so I drew up a skull and I had this piece of paper, and I was anybody who I could talk to be like, look, I'm gonna order these shirts. I'm gonna have these shirts. They're whatever how much they are, and do you want to order? And I took the money first, then I went and put the order, and then when I got the shirts, I delivered the shirts and stuff. And so I was always doing something with art. Like that, there's no way that I was not going to draw or be involved in the arts. And so then 30 and it was in 1994 when I came to Atlanta. There was no more core in 94. That was the same. And I came to Atlanta, and the first thing I did is like, well, how I want to be an artist. Atlanta is up and coming city. This is 94. The Olympics were coming in 96. And so I'm like, well, what do I need to do to make it happen? And that's when I was just hustling drawings, sketches. People would pay me to draw a tattoo design, and then I would sell it to them on paper, and then they go and get the tattoo, come back and show me the design and stuff. And so I was like, yeah, yeah, that's what I want to do. It's what I want to do. But and that's how I started my tattoo career. That's when I really sat down and turned it into a business where this is my job. This is what I do. And so it's been 30 years with tattoos, graphic design. When the internet became a thing in the late '90s, I was doing websites. I came across you, W, Lord God, he's my brother-in-law
Mhm.
now, but he was my art partner in the early days. We just wherever the art was, we were going. Um, Apache Cafe, just hanging out with artists and stuff. And that was the as I started my art career, that also was also my art education. Mr. Gilbert Young, you come across artists and I'm just watching what they're doing. I'm paying attention to how they draw. Fahamo Peku, and he worked on a couple of flyers for us. And I'm looking at him, just clicking and clicking. I'm like, I want to do that. And got a computer and started getting some programs. And you trade discs back in the '90s and early 2000. We traded disc and started installing things. And so it was just an evolution of learning different mediums. Lord Yada taught me how to paint. Would grab a brush and like, well, I don't even know how do people do what they do. And then he sit there and he used the brush like this and like that. And I was like, okay, okay, all right, let me try that. And so little by little, I just picked up things from other people to the point where now, I've worked on murals. I still do tattoos. I draw a lot of tattoo designs that people pay me for. I do a lot of graphic design and illustration for companies like Microsoft, Adobe, Snapdragon, Coca-Cola, Sharpie. I've been sponsored by many companies, including Chartpak, who has Koh-i-Noor pencils and AD markers. So because I've just kept pushing, finding out how can I do this thing that other artists do? How can I try this thing and paint and draw and continue to evolve in my own talent and art? Because for some reason, among all the people in the world, there's a lot of us in Atlanta, you including, but there's few. The arts is not as easy to master and to even just get into and say, this is what I want to do. And so if I'm given that talent, that gift, then I need to explore it all the way. That's what I've been doing.
Wow, I mean, I think the part that really I find impressive is these connections that you have with Adobe and Kohinoor. I know you mentioned Kohinoor. Um, these are like art brands for those who may not know. Sharpie. I remember when you did the Sharpie tie-in. You had the big
I had at an event, yep,
big drawing.
people were drawing zig. Well, mine was so.
I mean, that's something that uh I think still holds a lot of weight now, especially with social media. A lot of people like to do brand tie-ins. You were doing that really ahead. You were ahead of the game on that. And
That's
that's
right.
something I know a lot of people they would like to know, like how did he break into that? How did that come about?
Hmm. Man, chasing people. You got to chase people. And what's worse is that once you get familiar with somebody in a position where they can work with you and collaborate, you got to chase the next person who's coming up behind them because they're not going to be there for long. That position doesn't last and stuff. And so you start all over. So no matter what happened last year or the year before, those people don't work there right now. So they're not handing me stuff. Now I got to talk to someone else, and that's a constant thing. And you know, the very first time I got some sponsorship was Binders Art Store. Here in Atlanta. Binders. And so they had they got that place in Piedmont in Buckhead, and I was always there hanging out. And then one day, and so what I did was I started tagging them. Every time I go by the store and buy something, I take a little picture or video. This is the early days of Instagram, and I would tag them. And so one day I'm walking out the store, and in is walking one of their social media people. And he looks at me. He says, "You're Dan or Delta Tango Mike." I'm not sure what he called me. He says, "Yeah, man, what's up?" And I always say hello to anybody because I've been an artist for a long time. I know a lot of people, even if I don't recognize you. That's my secret. I'm still gonna act nice, like, "Yeah, what's up?" And I did that. I thought you got to my wife's like, "Who was that?" I said, "I don't know." They know me, and that's all I need to know.
Working you did.
Yeah, yeah. And so we start talking. And so he offered me to give me some art materials and some of the things that we did. And by then I was already doing the Artist King meetups. We called them Black Book Conversations. And that's the art business mentorship where, in the early days of the social media and to this day, you'll see artists complaining and whining about anything that's going on because it's legit. There's problems and issues in the arts community. And the thing that goes through my head is, well, there's an answer to that. Yes, there's a legitimate complaint, but there's also an answer to how you handle that. And so instead of me getting mad, and a friend of mine, I was talking to him about it, it's like, why don't artists, do this? And he says, well, maybe no one told them. And I was like, oh, snap. Maybe that's my job. And so I started to have these meetups where we would, and you were there in Midtown at the Biltmore Hotel downstairs in the basement. And so because of those things, Binders offered to give me swag to give away. And he's like, "Well, what can we do? How can we partner up?" I said, "Artists love paper, sketchbooks, pencils. But what you got here, that's what artists want. Yeah. To this day, like that's my gift to anybody. When I know I'm gonna see you on your birthday or something, like I'm gonna give them a sketchbook, and because artists love that. I know I do. Yeah. Down. And so that's what happened. And so before I knew it, I had a conference, the Artist King conference, and man, I went in with a list and said, "Look, I'd like to do a giveaway these many days, this many times, blah blah blah." And they're like, "Dan, you get your cart, and your limit is $500." I'm like, "Whoa!" And so I'm scrolling down, up and down the aisle. And then I give out 90% of it, 10% of it I keep to myself. And so now I'm building my stash. And that's how it starts, having a friendly conversation, being intentional about your purpose. you know, I don't talk about art as a way to get in with the girls or I mean, I'm old now, I'm married and all that. But like when you're a kid, when you're young, you're a nerd, that's whack. Like if you're not playing sports or something, like what the hell, what are you talking about? And so you I do the art and I talk about art and I'll talk to you and anyone else who will listen about pencils and computers and laptops and drawing tablets and apps that relate to art because that's what I really enjoy and I grew up. I don't remember a day not drawing. Like that's it. And so when I'm posting online, when I'm talking to people, when I'm doing the meetups, when I'm doing the art business mentoring, when I'm talking to potential clients or collaborators or sponsors, this is it. This is me. This is it. Like I have I cannot offer you anything else. My love for my family is for my family. My personal times for me, but the art stuff, bro, come on. And so that kind of kicked it off. And from there, we got Montana. From there, I worked with Sam Flax a few times. And then, and it helps too that you're nice, that you're a friendly person. And so, a friend of mine, his name is Suede. His wife works for Sharpie, and then there was a company, tech company who had a big 3-day, 4-day conference, and they had a deal with Sharpie to do this Sharpie Slam. And so one year I went, I was there, and I was like, "Hey, that's cool." I didn't participate. I was just a spectator. But because I knew the people who put on the conference, the next year they're like, "Dan, do you want to run the Sharpie Slam?" And I was like, "Oh, what does that mean?" Well, they had this is the same what I said earlier. They had lost the connection to the person at Sharpie, so they didn't have art materials. So now I get to play the curator role, but that also means I get to find the markers. And I'm like, if I could have done that, I would have done that for myself a long time. What? And so, but because my friend Sway, his wife works at Noel Brands, which is the umbrella company for Sharpie, Prismacolor, Elmer's Glue, and so on. She said, "Well, let me see what I can do." And I was like, "Great." Man, I've been promising this big event, promising all these things happening. I put teams together. Sam Flax gave me a bunch of big boards, whiteboards. I had everything but the markers. 2 weeks before the event, I'm still like, come on, where you at, Sharpie? Where are they not answering me? What's going on? And then they finally a week before they say, yes, we got it. The order is in, you'll get it. And I'm like, well, can I go pick it up? Because Noel Brands and Sharpie headquarters are here in Atlanta. And my friend, she's like, nah, not unless you want to drive to Tennessee, because that's where the warehouse is. And I'm like, I'll go. I don't care. I'll go. Like, and so, anyways, 2 days before the event, 20, 30 boxes of Sharpies show up at my warehouse. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
oh, oh. And that's how these relationships are. It's they take there's a lot of lead time. I get conversations with artists that are like, "Hey Dan, do you think that if I talk to Sam Flash tomorrow, they're gonna give me the thing by this weekend?" I'm like, "Bro, what day is it? When do you need this thing?" Like there's a lot of conversation time, a lot of going back and forth, and they gotta know that you're for real. They gotta see that you are who you say you are, because I'm sure there's tons of people like the bums at the gas station talking about telling stories, give me $1, whatever. So imagine, you got all this. And I'm sure people said this to you, and I know I said it to you. It's like, put me on, what's up? Let me draw a panel. Let me draw a panel. And you ain't gotta pay you nothing. Just putting my name in the book. But then you're like, well, yeah, I just met you today. Who the hell are you? What are you gonna draw on my thing? And so that's the kind of thing that you have to have a relationship with a pipeline where you get to know them, they get to know you, and then they're down. They're like, sure, whatever you want, Dan, whatever it is, let's do it. And so from there, because in the tech industry, I got to know people. I went to a lot of conferences, and here's a tip for anybody who's listening right now. This is what you have to do. You go to conferences, tech conferences, comic conference, any conference, doesn't matter, right? You don't even have to be into that. I went to a lot of startup and entrepreneurial conferences, and I got to talking to the sponsors. Listening to the talks is great, the panels, the workshops, and the free food if they have free coffee and all that, great. But go talk to the sponsors. Microsoft was in the building, and those days was Nokia was in the building. Microsoft was doing a big switch from Windows 7 to Windows 8 at that time. Lots of giveaways. AT&T, I got to meet people at AT&T, and T, and they became our sponsor for some of our events. And they were providing free food, thousands of dollars in food, bro. Yo, imagine a drawing session, but the food is free and it's good food. Like, yes. And so, and so when you do that and you go talk and meet these sponsors, the person behind the table might be a intern or just a salesperson, but eventually you start meeting some of their bosses, some of the people who do the outreach, some of the people who do the marketing, some of the people who are like, well, Dan, what do you say if you grab that surface and then we'll set up a table for you and you just draw right here on this table at our conference? Like, yeah, 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 cool. And now I have my stickers and I have my business cards. I don't do business cards anymore. Stickers, stickers. Everybody gets a sticker and I'm drawing and then they're talking about me. Now Microsoft is talking about me,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's it. And that's how it starts. And you have to constantly be out on the street, be out at these places where things are happening. And people get to know you, they get to see you. And, you can't hide the laziness. You can't hide the lies. You can't hide the non-existing talent. Like, you really out there pushing, pushing, pushing.
But you know what? Let me say this. One thing I got out of that I hope that all those in the Soul Squad got is that you know, as artists, a lot of us are we always talk about how we're in our quiet space. We're home. And even if we're on the internet, we're still home. You know what I mean? We're not out among people. We're still an enigma to people because they see your icon, they see your emails, but I really don't know you, like you were saying. So I think what you just dropped was very valuable because I think for a lot of artists who feel stifled, I think one of the keys is you got to get out. You got to move around. Uh, like you said, Sway's wife. I met her before because I'm.
Helena.
Yeah,
Yeah, Helena Harrison. Yes. Good people.
yeah. I didn't realize that she had that connect, but yeah, he's a cool brother too. And people they'll look at the things that you accomplished, and they'd be like, "How'd he do that?" 'Cause I'm even wondering, "How'd he do that? How?" But I also understand. But I mean, I understand things come from relationships. With some people, they may look at it like, uh, these things just happen. Right? So I just gave something. Then but you put all this work in, and taking the time to establish uh
Relationship.
relationships and talking to people because you even got me inspired because even though I know that you like reminded me I need to get up. So yeah. And the conferences that oh man, I'm gonna be at a conference like really soon, man. After this,
If they invite you, any conferences you're invited to, you just go. Just go. You got a free ticket? Okay, I'll be there.
yeah,
Yeah, I even know.
guys, we're thinking, real quick. Um, a lot of times we're thinking of a conference that is in line with what we do. When you're saying just go to the conference because you may connect with somebody who can connect with what you do. You know what I mean? Like find a like say it's uh a auto connection, auto conference,
An auto show, a boat show.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, They happen at the Georgia World Congress Center all the time. Just go, try to find a free ticket, or just go and pass out some stickers. Go to the sponsors. The sponsors are there to promote themselves and their brand. They're spending money. The vendors are there to sell something, but the sponsors are there to spend money. And so, man, if you draw boats really good, then you should be at a boat show passing out your bold stickers,
Right.
like connecting. Yes, yes.
So
But the other part, go ahead. Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no, I'm saying so
Yeah.
that no, I'm saying so that's what brought you to Adobe as well.
Yes, yes, yes. And and I was gonna say that I am an outgoing person. I'm a talker. I come from a family of merchants. My grandparents were merchants. My mother was a merchant. This whole Avon, Tupperware, all that stuff. Growing up, I was one of those little kids in the '70s sitting in the corner being quiet while my mama was selling Tupperware and doing the Tupperware parties and all that stuff. That's real life. That's what we did. But I heard her talk and say things trying to get people to draw them in to make the sale to buy. And so that is part of my nature. But then you said artists, we grow up like this, talking to no one like this. Some of us, hi, write your drawing is like, and don't talk to nobody, right? And so then you're forced, but now I'm saying go out there and you say get out there and see the world and then get the people to talk to you, but they're not that kind of people. And the social media is doing that to people where now we were artists. I just know how to draw, but now I gotta be a social media marketer, a strategist. I need to write, a podcaster. I gotta do all these things just to be seen and stuff. And so, yes, there's a part, and that's the business. There's a part of the art career where 10% is talent, which is still a lot, and then 90% is the business, marketing, socializing, selling, pitching, knowing how to have a presence so people will be like, well, who's that guy? Why is that? And people said this to me. They said when the first time they see me, they're like, who is this loud Puerto Rican? And I'm sorry. Yes, you're gonna notice, you're gonna pay attention, you're gonna be like, who is this guy? And then after I give you a sticker, they're gonna go back and be like, well, who is this dude? And then pull it up on the phone and like, oh snap, he is a real artist. Oh, let me go talk to him now. And so those are parts that you have to learn and understand that it's important for the business if you want to be a working artist. And if you want to be a working artist, this is the art business side, don't be a starving artist. Like, no, no, because that art industry in the capitalism in general exploits artists. Everything in your house, in the streets, is made by artists. It's designed and created by artists, and none of these artists are rich, right? And so it's like, man, don't if you want to be a working artist, don't be a starving artist, be a thriving artist. And how do we become thriving artists? Well, we have to understand the business. We have to understand how to negotiate. We have to understand how to earn, how to get paid, how to follow up, communicate. And that is beyond, sitting there like this.
Hmm. And then also, I know you've done a couple workshops 'cause I even attended on the business of art, meaning like the business of art and the what do you call it, the legal,
Yes, IP,
yeah,
I
protecting your intellectual
intellectual property.
and negotiating contracts and things of that nature.
Yep.
But how did
Okay.
how did it come about?
So right. So I decided to start the Black Book Conversations. And at first was I had the idea that, maybe someone never told them, right? No, but someone never told an artist. And it hit me because I didn't go to school for art. I didn't take any art classes. I took one art class in high school in the 10th grade, and I almost failed because I was never there. Because I was crazy as a kid, but also it was very boring. Like the stuff, you had 1 week to do this one drawing, and I grew up drawing comics, and I draw fast because I'm very impatient because I want to see what the drawing looks like. And if I don't like it, I want to redraw it again and on and on and on. And so I didn't go. I didn't go to class. And so when when I got to be an adult and now I'm a working artist and I'm learning things and seeing things, and they're like, oh, this is a program that was in high school. This is a program that was in middle school. I'm like, well, where was it in my neighborhood? Because no one told me. No one said that. Like I could have been a working artist for a long time. But okay, fine. So let me be the one to share. Let me be the one to bring it out there and tell these artists this is what's missing, this is what's going on. And a long time ago, when I was a kid and I read a Malcolm X biography, the biography of Malcolm X. The reason I read the biography is because I had a cassette tape of Will Smith, and inside of the cassette tape jacket, the pictures, Will Smith had a shirt that said Malcolm X. And I had never heard of that. I'm Mexican, on the West Coast. And I'm like, oh, well, I want to know who that is. And then when I found the book and I read the book, and then the lesson I got out of it was each one teach one. And it just stayed in my mind. And so when this friend of mine said, well, maybe no one told the artist that there's this information, I'm thinking, well, then I'm gonna tell them. I'm gonna do this. And so that's where the whole meetups began, the Black Book conversations, and bringing real life working artists like yourself and to come in and share. It's like, well, just tell us a little bit about how you started, what went on with that. Well, because I was already used to grabbing sponsors, and I'm gonna bring W into this part too. W, an amazing, super talented artist. He's my artist mentor.
I gotta get that brother on one day.
Yes, yes. And so he's like, so I was asking him tons of questions and he always gives me answers. And he said, dude, you want to find sponsors to pay for the things that you're doing instead of you worried about selling tickets to this thing and because you need to pay for stuff. And I was like, dang, using other people's money. It's like, okay, I like that idea. And so sponsors was a thing. So it's like, well, let me find sponsors. That place in Midtown at the Biltmore Hotel, that the basement was called Hippopotamus. It was a tech business incubator. And I just asked, like, hey, I want to do this event. It's an artist talk. It's a business entrepreneurial thing. Would you let me give me the space, as a collaboration partnership or something, right, for free? And because they had known me enough, they're like, sure, Dan, why not? Cool. And so in those days, I came across an attorney. Her name is Deborah Gonzalez, and she's assistant attorney in the state of Georgia. I forget her position, but she's big time. And so she's a IP attorney, and so she had reached out to Binders about doing classes on IP law, and I was doing classes on art and the business of art. So the same guy who I first got in touch with to do the sponsorships from Binders, he had us meet together. He brought us together in a meeting and said, "Here, you do this, you do that. Want y'all talk?" And we became friends after that. Like Deborah Gonzalez and I. Like, okay. And so we're actually gonna start doing those workshops again. We call the League of Art Entrepreneurs, where we bring in what is a contract, how to negotiate, why should you value yourself, how much do things cost before you sell it, you need to understand your budgets and all these things. And so we started doing the classes for free at Binders. Eventually she put together a book, a workbook, and all this learning, and said, well, let's charge for these monthly classes. And so I recruited artists and we started having, private classes where the artists would go through all of these steps and understand this is a business, kind of like what is it? Business management. What's the other MBA? Like an MBA, but for artists. That was the goal. The goal. And IP law is very important because you need to understand how to protect yourself. And I'm not afraid of walking into Target tomorrow or Walmart or whatever and seeing my artwork on a shirt or on tons of shirts. I'm not afraid of that because the day that happens, I'm taking pictures. I'm calling my attorney and be like, look, they don't have my permission. There, yeah. They don't have my permission. Let's go get paid. You know, and that's the thing. Like, when you understand who you are, your position, your place in the market, and you have this knowledge, it's like playing chess. You don't you put your pieces out there, but you got backup. You got backup, and you making moves on purpose. But a lot of times, what ends up happening, because artists are passionate, emotional beings, because the art is draws from the soul. It's just a creative. creator energy is not worried about capitalism. It's not worried about, making a living and paying your bills. And so when someone looks at your drawing and it's like, oh, that looks amazing, bro. How much for it? The artist will freeze. Oh, snap. Somebody wants this. Oh my,
Yeah, they become an instant businessman, and that
you have to.
yeah.
But most of the time it happens, oh, you like that? Oh man, here, you can have it. Yeah. You can,
I make another one.
yeah, I was like, oh my God, I feel fulfilled. And then, I'm a married man now with grandchildren, and I go home, and if I tell my wife, yeah, I gave away that painting, she'll be like, what are you talking about? That's not how we do things. This is a business. This is your career. This is your art, but we start, myself, I started when I was a child drawing and giving away my drawings, and I don't have any drawings before high school. By the time I made it into the Marine Corps, that's when I started keeping my drawings. And so I don't have any of that artwork, and I'm okay with it because it was very ugly anyways. But still, it's like you feel like it comes out of you. Well, it's endless, That's cool. That's cool. But then later, you realize, wait a minute, animations, animators get paid. There's cartoons on TV, cartoonists get paid. There's comic books on the street, on the store. There's artists are getting paid. Marvel's getting paid. They're like, wait a minute. What if I chose to be one of those artists too? Can I get paid? I don't have to be a landscaper. I don't have to work at a kitchen, a Taco Bell. I worked at Taco Bell when I was a kid. I'm also doing those things. Yeah, right. But imagine that. Like, I don't have to do this. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't have to do those things. I don't have to be a pilot. We can just choose other things that are cool. Doctor. I don't have to be a doctor. I don't have to be any of those things. I can be an artist. Are you kidding me? Like, I wash my hands like 1,000 times a day because I don't want to, grease or dirt on my devices and my paper and all that. And it's like I can be clean inside a air conditioned place and draw all day and have all my worldly needs handled. Oh, that sounds like a good deal to me. But when you choose to do that, the moment you choose to trade it or give it away, you have to understand the transaction.
Yeah.
And that's where the contract happens. That's where, the loss and profit statement comes in. That's where paying taxes on this comes in. You go to the store, they're not giving away anything unless a sale going on or buy one, get one type of thing. No. And you go into the fisherman's aisle of Walmart, and they got these boxes of for the pencils and so on, and they got all this stuff, and it's one price. And then you go to the art aisle, and that's another price. Like, they know artists are gonna pay more for it, there's a business here. There's a business happening, and the starving artist mentality says, "I'm willing to subsidize that. I'm willing to keep paying, money for canvas and paints and brushes, and then let someone else have the fruits of this labor." It's like, man, we need to understand what's going on.
So my question is, you say you're going to start these workshops up again for the local people. Do you do this for people globally? Like say people out there want to get in touch with you and say, "Hey, I want to get in on learning some of this knowledge from you." Can they also reach out to you?
Yes, yes, and I have various ways of doing that. So you can reach me directly through my socials, Delta Tango Mike. But also, if you want to just catch up on some of the stuff that we've shared before, it's an Art is King YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, type in Art is King. You'll find the talk where you were in, because you were there with Neil Hamilton one time. The couple of interviews that I've done with you are there. That, as a matter of fact, I interviewed 100. I have 100 podcasts already on iTunes. You can just go to the podcast app and catch up on the podcast. I have a second version of the podcast on Substack now, and it's still also on the Artist King. And I'm actually going back and grabbing snippets and gonna turn that into reels and shorts so that we don't forget none of this knowledge that's been shared already. And it's all important. It's all very useful. And so that's just start with that, and then locally, but in person and also online, I do internships. And so you can be my intern, and we work together on two things. One is the duties that have to do with the things that I do that I need help with. And the other part is understanding your goals, understanding your mission, understanding what you want out of your art career. And once we decipher that and discover what it is, that becomes one point of the line, and then understanding where you are now. And then I help you with all those things in between. That's it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So art is king. You want to break that down for those who are unaware?
Yes, yes. So the meetups began as the Black Book conversations. It was just basic sharing of information. And the truth is, when I started my podcast, I didn't go to school. I don't have degrees. I didn't go to college. I don't have certifications. I can tell you how to do the things that you need to do because I've done them, not because I have a paperwork to show for it. And so, um, as I got around the artist community, meaning W, Lorgata, and many other artists, including yourself, I studied what they do. And so what I wanted to do was go up and ask that we were like, hey man, so how do you write a script? Or, how did you figure out this pose or whatever? And in the early days, before social media, before we started telling on ourselves, artists kept that stuff. Writers, you're not gonna know my style. You're gonna see it, but you're not gonna know how I put it together. And so the information wasn't as open as it is today. And so what I decided to do is like, look, what if I come to Dawood and all these other artists, Fabian, Fahamu, and I said, hey, look, I got a podcast. Can you answer some questions? They'd say yes. If I say, look, man, I want to do what you do and take your job from you, they're not gonna say yes to that. I'm not. Uh, and not that I want to lie to anyone. It's just that I was hungry for information, and unless you pay SCAD or the defunct School of the Arts, the organization that was around, um, you know, you're not gonna know these things. No one's gonna tell you. It's not out there. And so I said, okay, let me do the podcast. And then later it's like, okay, let me do the meetups. And so eventually a friend of mine, his name is um Alan Johnson, and his wife, she worked he's a big music industry veteran who's been around for 40, 50 years in the music industry. He knows all about contracts and dealing with people. And Sharon Johnson is his wife. She is an executive at this hotel chain. So one day he's like, "Hey man, so Sharon says you can have a one day at the hotel that she's managing right now because she's trying to build business, and so you can do whatever you want in the ballroom." And I said, "Well, I want to do a conference, and I need 3 days, and give somebody an inch, and." And so she's like, "Sure, Dan," because we're good people, we know each other. We go to their house for Thanksgiving, things like that, and so that's when decided to call it Artist King. And there's nothing about male, female. It can be Artist Queen. And I have an Artist Queen piece up here that I drew digitally. It's about understanding that art, it is the ultimate in anything that the human existence has ever come across. Oh, that's it. I'm not a bragger. I'm not saying that I'm all one of those people who made humanity what it is today. I'm just saying an artist, a designer had to put together the stitching and understand how to build a shirt. An artist had to do this print, the prints that are on your wall behind you, the little 3D things, figures, the bookshelf, the light bulb. Tesla was an artist. So was Edison.
I've always said that outside of nature, everything an artist had to design. Was
And if you take it further, the creator is art.
that's artist. That's what I'm saying. So nature is design. Everything. If we removed everything that an artist designed, we'd be naked
Right.
with no facilities, no devices, no anything. Because somebody has to design every last little thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Engineers are artists. Engineer doesn't grow up saying that I want to design a street and a block in a shopping center. They grew up drawing. They're just drawing. They like drawing buildings. They like drawing streets and landscapes. That's right. And that's the part we have to understand. And, the firefighter doesn't have to understand that. The politicians or they don't have to understand that. The artist needs to understand that. Because as soon as you understand what art is and what it really means. It's not just Michelangelo or Picasso, okay, and not just that. It's like we are creators, builders of things that humanity uses every day, and that has value. You have value. Your talent has value, and you've been given a gift. Maybe you weren't the best drawer when the gift was given to you, but your training built up your talent to get to that point where you know what there's a world where this is valuable to someone.
Indeed.
And now if I choose, it's your choice. If I choose to then let this be my job, then I need to understand all the things that go around with this and become thriving artists, not a starving artist, but a thriving artist. And so that's where artist king comes in. It's like, listen, this is like royalty. You are royalty. Your thing you make is royalty. Is the top of the top of that happens. And man, I've been preaching that for a long time now.
I like that. I get. So one last thing I want to ask you about, and then I want to rewind back to your childhood. Is we got to talk about The Walking Dead. So I'm about. I'm wondering, did I know beforehand that you were going to be in there, or did I watch it and I just saw you? And I'm trying to remember how it happened. I thought that was dope. But break that down because we got some Walking Dead fans out here.
Nice, nice. Yes, The Walking Dead. So Atlanta has become like this Hollywood, the South, Hollywood of the South. And we got Tyler Perry and there's a couple other big studios. We got Assembly down the street on 285. Tons of shows. And in the early days, this was like 2012, 2014, 2014, 2016, something like that. I can't remember exactly, but, I have friends who are into, producing films, and, in the early days, it's all independent films, and then the studios started showing up in Atlanta, and so this friend of mine, she gives me a call, she says, "Hey, Dan, there's this big production going on, and they're looking for mean Mexicans, and you should check it out." And I'm like, "Alright, cool. Send me the info." So she sent me an email, and so I sent them an email, a couple pictures of myself, and, I think I had hair still. I still had hair, and, and I was working out, so my arms were much bigger. It was, no smile, no, you gotta have that mean mug. I am from East LA, so I know that mean mug very well. It's natural, it just comes out. And I grew up in Mexico for some years, and it's rough, bro. It's rough.
Yeah. Oh, we gonna
And
get to that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I'm like, well, I can do that. And so I took some pictures, sent my info, and that was that. I didn't think nothing of it. And then they said they'd get a response in the background. It's called background or extras. And like, yeah, yeah, come on in. We need you. There's a fitting this date, and then filming this is date. And I was like, cool. It's at the Gold Farm. I don't know, and the Walking Dead had become very popular comic book, but I really didn't pay attention because I'm not a zombie guy. I'm not into zombies, and but I'm like, all right, let's go. And so here I am, and you gotta look like a cholo. So I got this clothes. This was my regular clothes. That's how I dress. And And, I've been trying to spice it up and have a little color, but I just can't. It's black and blue is my colors, and so I go and I got and they like my look, and I had a tank top, and I had my tattoos out and stuff. They're like, "You gonna stand right here," and they got other people. "You gonna stand right there," and they're like, "Cool." They gave me a bat, so I'm like, "Cool." And then the scene is in episode 4 of The Walking Dead. The Rick and the crowd are just trying to get to the CDC. That whole first season is about getting to the CDC, and so they stop in Atlanta, and they're gonna pick up some weapons. They're gonna find some weapons, and but one of but those are Lovato's weapons, and so there's a big argument, and they kidnap one of the kids from Rick's crew, and Hector, the guy who plays Hector, his name is Noel. He's a Mexican. Italian actor who plays Hector in every movie you ever seen, a bald head with a mustache, and he gets shot in the behind and stuff.
He was in the Jim Carrey movie Bruce Almighty, and the monkey went into his backside.
I didn't want to say that about him, but yeah, yeah, Stagger happens. That guy, and and so they show up. Rick and his crew show up. They want their guns, and they got one of our guys. Yeah, because they kidnapped one of our guys, and so they want to trade our guy for the weapons that we took. And one of the dude who's our leader, her gang leader, he's the actor who played DJ Yella in the Ice in the Straight Outta Compton movie. And so he's like, yeah, they talking, and behind him there's this big doors, and behind him I'm standing there with the back. You gotta act like this, whatever is about to happen, you're just gonna have to do it. And then they do some talking, and they walk by. So there's like a lot of shots where the camera's panning, and then you can see me. And then later there's a showdown, and it's about to go down. Everybody got their guns out, their rifles, and I'm right behind Rick, and I'm like, of course they're not gonna say hit him, but you gotta act and pretend like I'm taking this guy out. And so, and the whole scene is diffused when this old lady comes out, and she's like, "Oh, somebody is hurt and they needed medicine." And Noe, aka Hector, he looks back and say, "Abuela, you gotta go back, get out of here." And then Rick's like, "What the hell's going on? Like, why y'all have these old people here? What's up?" And now you find out that the Vatos had taken over the old folks' home and protected the old folks because the staff took off, and some of us had our grandparents there, or people there, and so we stayed and been protecting them this whole time. And Hector, aka that real actor's name is Noe, he was one of the nurses. He was doing the injections and stuff, and so then we all walked back to this building, and that was the filming of 2 days. One day the showdown, another day the old people. And so many times you see me walking, and I got my bat, and that's my claim to fame, bro. Like I got tons of pictures of screenshots, and every time I see it, I post it. People have reached out, people who collect signatures and memorabilia from all the actors who's been in the shows. They've reached out to me and like, oh, that's all right. And ever since then, I kind of been addicted to the pay is low. You're not gonna get rich and famous, but like, you know what? That fits me. They need a mean Mexican. I'll go do it.
Hey, why not?
Ya te gu-
Was the bat real or was it a prop?
Oh, it was a real bat. Yeah, it was real stuff. Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, but you're never gonna really swing at nobody, so it's cool. I did have a little part in a Tyler Perry show, and we had to shove this guy. We came out the car, real thuggish, and snatched this guy up, and then he fought back, like he was like, and so at first, they say action, and you're like, you just kind of grab and like pretend, but then he's swinging hard for real, and you're like, oh snap. Like, I'm gonna have to put in some strength for real in here because it has to look real, but also the guy is not he's not gonna let you just manhandle him. And so you just
What movie was that? Which one was it?
that was a TV show, If Loving You Was Wrong or something like that. And I also had a speaking part in a movie called let's be cops. I got paid for speaking. I got paid for speaking, but then they cut it, and now you only get to see me afterwards, the action. And so that was cool. That was a nice paycheck. I still get residuals on that.
I gotta go back. Yeah, that's the wasn't the Wayne's brother.
Yes, that was the Wayans brothers. The son, yeah. So Damon Jr.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to look into that. All right, well that's a good segue. That is, that is a good segue back to childhood. So that was DTB, Dan the Boy.
So in those days, I was El Deño. So my name is Daniel El Deño. Deno. But the N is a funny N that has a little
Daniel. Okay.
Daniel. Yeah. Yeah, because I grew up in East LA. Parents are from Mexico. They met in LA. I was born in 72. And in the 70s and 80s, LA is a war zone, just straight up, And and so my name is Daniel, but it's Daniel. My name is Daniel. Because that's how you pronounce it in Spanish. And so when people who speak Spanish want to say it in an English kind of way, Daniel, you kind of shorten it to Daniel. Instead of Daniel, you say Daniel and stuff. And so that becomes your name, El Daniel. And it's tattooed on my neck and stuff, so I'll never forget it. Anyways, so yeah, I grew up in East LA. I went to middle school, to kindergarten, to high school, and all this stuff in LA. But when I was so when I was 8, we moved to Mexico to visit my grandmother because she had a heart attack or something, a stroke. And but my mother didn't believe in just visiting because we ended up selling all our stuff and then moving, and so by then, that's my 3D printer. And so by then, we get to Mexico, and growing up in LA, it was very rough. You speak English in school, but you speak Spanish at home. So I've been bilingual my whole life. I like to draw and sketch, but you're constantly fighting. You're constantly fighting. And somebody may have something that somebody else wants. I may have something that somebody else wants, and they're just going to take it. And that's it. That's just how it's going to go. And we didn't have much. We grew up poor, and government cheese and all that. And so I don't know. It's just that's just part of what happens, that people fight. And one thing I learned real early is the mean mug. Like, well, what if I act tough? Then people are not gonna want to step up to me. I don't know. And I just tried it. I just tried it. Like, and I just had this mean mugging, but I like to talk and yell and laugh. So I had to find like the right balance. And so we moved to Mexico, and that's when my fighting skills really came into play because now, you know, this happens to Chicanos, Mexicans born in the States, is that in the United States, you're you're not American, you're a Mexican. And in Mexico, you're not a Mexican, you're an American. Yeah, and stuff. And so I'm in Mexico. When I left here, I was in third grade. When I got there, they put me in second grade because I didn't know all those things, the school things in Spanish. I knew it in English, but not in Spanish. So now I was dumb. And so I had to figure that out. So now I'm bigger than most kids in my class. And so they want to challenge me. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. And then I come from a family of merchants. So we always finding ways, to overcome. And so my family had a little store, little convenience store, no bigger than this office that I'm in right now, and selling sodas and candy and so on. And so um, you kind of have a little bit that more than other people have, but it's not big deal things. It's like you just have extra candy or you can eat good today. And and so then in the street, people want to challenge me because I'm pretending to be Mexican, but I'm not really Mexican. And so you're constantly fighting, constantly fighting, constantly fighting. And so and then with Mexico, and the culture of Mexico was very patriarchal, very machismo, so you can't act like a punk, don't be a punk, don't cry, and all this other stuff. So you're like, fine. Fight, but one thing that it's also very Mexican, and I think it's most strong cultures is the same, is that you're very proud of your history. You're very proud of who you are. Doesn't matter who you are, what you are, you're proud. And so growing up in LA on the way to school, there's murals everywhere. LA's had murals for a long time. And Mexico the same way. And by the time I got to Mexico and I had a history teacher who loved to tell stories, very animated, telling history stories. And then I lived in Mexico City, in the actual city, and so you see all these old Aztec temples and so on. And so, and then by then I already had was very familiar with comics, not Batman comics, not Superman or anything like that, but Mexican characters, comedic characters, cartoon characters, comics and stuff. And so I came across an Aztec history comic, and bro, like it made all this history come to life, like it's real, and that's like, oh my God. And because I used to draw, I was like drawing that stuff, drawing that stuff. I learned the Aztec history and the mythology and the gods and stuff. And so 5 years later, in 1985, then we come back to LA. And so now I'm back in East LA fighting again and still fighting. But now I have this idea of how all this stuff is connected. And in LA, the murals are stories of Aztec mythology, stories of Mexican migration, of picking and in the fields, fighting for the rights, civil rights and stuff. And um and so so like you get this kind of pride, and it's crazy because you find the next brown person for no reason, but you're proud of this, being part of this history. And so it's kind of nutty. And so but that's the part where my art just kind of, and that's something that Marcus Williams said yesterday, like you gotta put into your soul to draw from the soul. When he said that, like what the. And so, and then that's exactly how it was. Like I just been soaking all this stuff up growing up, that, I put it into the paper. And art saved my life, literally, because I really enjoyed fighting. There's it's hard to explain this rush that you get. And now, and I never trained, but I could fight. And I think that's because I have a bigger fear of losing than the next person. And so, but when I found that I could make my own stories and draw my own characters and live in these other worlds on paper, it kind of like made everything unimportant, and now I live my life to a point where like people can say, call me whatever, and I don't care. Like, okay, you don't know, so what? Judge Judy says, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, like, you're right, I'm not gonna be insulted. Why? That person don't pay my bills.
Would you say that would you say that's from living in purpose, like finding a purpose?
Mhm. Yes, yes, I would say that. Yes. Yes, and this is something I didn't know how, but growing up, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to spend my life making art. I don't know how. No one, I never asked, but no one ever told me. No one ever said, "Dan, your drawings look cool. Here's something you should know." Nothing. But yes, yes, that is exactly right. That's why I feel like art saved my life, because without having this a way to channel my energy, channel my creativity, channel my thoughts and my dreams, and yeah, I would be like everyone else, fighting the world, being mad and upset, and I was very angry that we grew up poor. And then you're looking at TV shows like Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous, and now that's like supposedly normal Instagram stories that people are rich. Like, are you like really? That's what's happening, and then we have poverty and homelessness and stuff, but we really got this mindset that's off. And so I was angry as a kid. I was angry. It's like, how can people be filthy rich, and then, some of us got barely enough. I
So, going back real quick to your, when you were in your childhood, you had siblings, and what was the home life like in terms of artistically? That's usually a question I like to ask. 'Cause I'm kind of curious, like, where did was there how Marcus had an old brother that drew? I had actually a brother that drew. My other brother was writing, and my mom played the piano, so the house was always filled with live music. And different people, they're always inspired. Some people, they can have no music. It
yeah,
comes from a neighbor or just being out in the wild.
yeah, yeah. It was my imagination. I do have one brother. He's younger than me. He's a year and a half younger than me, and he draws too. My mother, she's passed now, but she used to knit. She was a knitter. Like, she can knit anything, everything, anything. And she's had groups and meetups and gatherings where all these ladies are sitting there going like this and trading tips and so on. She had stacks in our home. We were poor, but we had boxes of Avon, Tupperware, and boxes of yarn. Like, she collected yarn and stuff, and so very creative person. But no one else. No one else. I did not hang around people who could draw. That was not a thing. Tagging was a thing. But even growing up, I didn't want to be in the gangs, so I didn't hang out with people. And it's and not the gangs that I don't that I have a problem with. I have a problem with having to follow orders.
Mhm.
Like, nah, I'm smarter than you, and that's not a good move. And I don't like being tied to that, which kind of dumb because I ended up in the Marine Corps. But anyway, um, uh, but when I was in Mexico as a kid, um, my one of my aunts, she's passed too, but we shared the same birthday, different year. She was 20 years older than me, and she could draw. Like, but she didn't talk about it. She didn't do anything with it, but every other page in her notebooks or notes or whatever, there would be a drawing of a lady doing something, and very classy. Like, what is that? I forget the cartoon, the daily strip, and it has the little short girl with the black afro, and she has a friend who's bald headed. And the way they draw the ant, she's drawn very cartoonish, but they draw the ant very pinup like. And so that's how my aunt would draw. She was drawing very pinup like, and then she would write a little paragraph, and I would sit there and read it, and it's like, this is what's happening here, like, and stuff. And so her and I would draw sometimes, and but that was it. No talks about, there are people over there, or there's a place over there that does this. And so I thought nothing of it. But I think that biggest push came from my culture itself. Seeing these murals, and they tell a whole story in 3 feet of wall, and there's all this stuff, and so every day you're studying and studying and studying. Like, well, I want to tell stories like that. I want to tell my story. I want to tell stories that I make up, and maybe my story is not interesting, but I can embellish it and I can make it up. And so by the time I was in high school, I was making my own comics. I was drawing my own comics and writing my own stories. And I grew up on the days of Rambo and Schwarzenegger. So all my characters had big muscles, and we didn't have anatomy books in those days. And if they did, I didn't see them. We had muscle magazines. And so I knew how each muscle moved, no matter which anatomy. I know it. I used to know all the muscle names and stuff. And so I was drawing it, drawing it, drawing it, and of course it helps that, Spider-Man is looking naked dude with body paint on. Really, that's how it's drawn. Batman, they got all these muscles in the ribs. It's like, bro, no clothes. Clothes don't do that, but okay. And so that's what I was doing. And so really, it was um it was more of a calling for me that I had to draw this to see what it would look like if I drew it. And I know we'll talk about AI eventually, but you know, it's like I Dawu draws like this, Marcus Williams draws like that, W draws like that, Vallejo, Boris Vallejo draws like that, Frazetta. Okay, 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 hold on, let me try it. Let me see what it looked like if I do it. And that was it. It's just like this constant itch that I have to figure it out. And I have to understand how they did that so that I can do it too. But now I'm gonna do my version. And then I never copy the same thing. I'll draw Brother Man, but it's not gonna look like Brother Man. It's gonna look like Mexican Man, and it's gonna have a. It might be the same pose, but it's gonna be a whole my way for my.
They'll spin on it.
Yes, yes.
So, what would you say were some of your challenges? Like, was there anything that was like um a turning point in your life that may not even have been art related, but let's say maybe art helped to bail you out, or maybe
Yeah.
if you take a break?
Well, a couple things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. One day my mother told me to stop wasting paper. I was wasting a lot of paper. No one encouraged the drawings, the art,
So,
and
what age is this about?
I was like 14, 13, 14. And I told, and so I retorted. My retort was, "You didn't buy this." That's what I said to her, and not a good answer to talk to your mother like that. I'm sure my face was stinging right after that. But I used to steal. I used to steal paper from the school. I realized that going to the principal's office, that when you sit in this particular place in the principal's office, there was a stack of paper, rims of paper, copy paper right there. And eventually the staff stopped paying attention to you. And so I would go and just like slip out a bunch of paper and then walk out. And then one day I grabbed the whole thing and I walked out. And but when my mother said you're wasting paper, I felt this sting, like this hurts me. This hurts me. This means something because it hurts me. It's like, I ain't ask you for nothing. I never asked my mother for pencils, for paper, for sketchbooks. I didn't know black books existed. I never been to an art store. Like, I didn't know any of these things. And so I'm like, well, why does my thing bother you? Like, what's that got to do with you? And that's when I really felt like this thing is mine. This is me. This is my connection to the source and no one else. And then when I was in the Marine Corps, I was one of the fortunate people who read my contract when I joined the military. If you choose to join, read your contract and put in the things that you want because they'll give them to you. And my choice was to work in computers, doing programming because I knew that computers were a thing. They were going to be in part of the future, and I didn't want to leave the Marine Corps and just know how to hold a rifle and that's it. Like, no, no, no. I need. They got to train me to do something else. And that's what I did. I was in the Marine Corps. I was doing computer programming and data information. And so I had a desk. And every day I was drawing. I wasn't doing my work. I was just drawing because they say, this is good enough for government work and you can't be fired. You really can't be fired. But then I would do work and then I'd sit around and draw. And so this sergeant came in one day. And bro, this I can never forget this because this really really touched me. He walks through the door. He comes over to me and he says, "Put your drawings in this," and gives me a black book, and I still have it to this day. And I was like, "What's this?" And he says, "Yeah, I seen your drawing. I like what you're doing. Keep track of your drawings." Because by then I was doing my comics still, and now I was doing military character, running around being a mercenary around the world. And I would show it to people, and we would talk and stuff. And so when he did that, I was like, "Oh snap!" Like someone can see me, sees what I'm doing, and understands something about it. There's other people. And so that's when I understood what sketchbooks are and black books. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna put my stories in here. And it still has a comic story in there. And I started drawing, and from then on, I started buying black books. I understood that what sketchbooks are for, and to keep your drawings together. And then another thing that happened was I would tell my friends like, "Yeah, man, I'm gonna be a comic book artist." And this is 91, 1990, 91, 92. Like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a comic book artist, man. I'm gonna be a comic book artist." Like kids will tell they're gonna be an astronaut. Like, you're gonna walk on the moon. Like that's how proud you feel of saying it. Like, and bro, they laugh at you. They laugh. And they're like, "Ha ha ha, that's stupid. What are you talking about?" And you're like, am I dumb? Am I in a bizarro world where, I'm really screwed up? Is something really wrong with me that this is my dream? Like, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand. And it's that desire to be like, you know what? This is something. This is something. I feel it. I know it. I understand it. And I there's I really wish there was like an apprenticeship for like there is for plumbers and stuff. And you're an apprentice and you learn this and you learn that, and then you know, and there ain't. And so all you can do is like what I did, figure it out on my own by knowing other artists like yourself and being around artists, or going to school. And I hate the school. I hate school. I didn't want to go to school. That's why I joined the Marine Corps. So those were the things, like, there's little things along the way that just touch you little by little. And I didn't know how I was gonna be an artist. I didn't know how I was gonna be a comic book artist. I didn't know anything about 11 by 17 Bristol paper. I didn't know about blue pencils. I didn't know how animations got made. I didn't know anything. Nothing. But I know how to draw. Like, just put me next to somebody who knows, and I'm gonna pay attention. And look, I'll do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't stop me, man.
Oh man. So from this point, so you said when you were in the military, so that was like 4 years,
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. 4 years.
and then when so from the military, did you go back to LA or you came to it? That's
So okay, so right. So no more core in 94. So from 90 to 94 was the military. And I ended up in North Carolina, Camp Lejeune. And that's where I spent my time. I traveled up and down the East Coast. In the military, you meet people from all over the country. All over the country. There's people. And everybody has to be the same. Everybody takes a bath every day, everybody shaves every day. You do everything the same, everybody. So, and I still like to fight. I still like to fight. And a friend of mine, his name is Akil Baruti. He's here in Atlanta. He has a retreat compound that he rents out in Austell. And so I met him in the military, in the Marine Corps. And one day, so everybody's telling me, "Hey, man, you should come to my hometown. You should come to my hometown. Like, you should move here." And I wanted to be a comic book artist, so I knew that LA and New York were the centers
like the
of it,
hub, boy.
Yeah, and especially New York with DC and Marvel and whatever. That's all I knew. Like, that was the only fact I knew. Um, and so everybody's telling me to come to their hometown or whatever, and figuring it out, and then but I'm still fighting. And so one day, Akil, he sits me down and said, "Hey, man, let me talk to you." He says, "Listen, you're somebody's entertainment. Every time you fight, you're somebody's entertainment. People like riling you up because they know you're gonna react." And I was very hot headed. I had a big temper, and I grew up in East LA. You don't let somebody disrespect you. You don't let somebody think they're disrespecting them, disrespecting you. You don't let them imagine in their head, like, why is he looking at, um and so I don't know. I just that's just the way I knew how to act. And then the military, I mean, it's not a Marines are not a peacekeeping um uh, troops. This is first in, first out, all this stuff. And so I was like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "Every time you feel hot, and you need to think of it as a emergency broadcast system. This is a test. When the emergency broadcast system on the TV goes, doo, And then you see the letters. This is only a test. Chill out. Don't freak out. It's a test. But if there was something going on, we would tell you now. He says that's the heat talking to you. This is a test. Don't fall out, and because you're just getting into trouble. And I didn't care. I didn't care. I don't know. I was just crazy, bro. Growing up in East LA, you don't think you're gonna be 20 years old. Majority of people are in prison or in the cemetery, and so I don't know. You just never think about it, and so he tells me this. I'm like, man, what am I doing? What's happening to me? And him and I had a lot of creative conversations. He's a more of a writer, thinker person, and I'm more of an artist. And he would tell me these scenes, and I would draw 'em for him. And then eventually he was getting out and going to Atlanta. He lives in Atlanta. He's from Atlanta. He said, "I'm going to Atlanta. You should come." And I was like, you know what? This is a good dude. I feel my life elevated. I feel my whole being, my whole thinking, my whole moving about in this human world, elevated with this guy. I'm going. I'm going to Atlanta. And so I came to Atlanta in 94. It was September and there was rain for a whole month. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? What is this place? And then you're walking around the streets and there's no sidewalks. I'm like, this is not a city. What are we talking about? I'm I'm from LA. I've been to New York. I lived in Mexico City. Bro, concrete. I know concrete. What is this? Ditches? But man, within the first year, I was hanging out with this other friend of mine, and I always carried a backpack with markers, pencils, sketchbooks, and everything I could possibly need to sit down and draw if I felt inspired. It's like your mobile setup. And so big heavy backpack. That's all I carried. I didn't need nothing else. And so one day we pull up into this tattoo studio and he says, "Go show them your work." I was like, what do you mean? He says, "Yeah, go in there and show them your work." And in those days, in 1994, 95, there were like 5 tattoo shops in the whole state of Georgia. And I was like, you know what? I'm not scared to talk to people about my work. And I walked in there and I said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Dan. And I want to see if you guys teach tattooing. Here's my work." They loved it. That first day they said, you're in. And I was there 2 weeks for 2 weeks before they started yelling at me. And then I quit. I'm like, I'm out of here. I was in the Marine Corps. They can yell at you because they're higher ranking. And I'm like, never again. And you ain't my mama. So I ended up at this other shop. And then that's where I did my 1 year apprenticeship. And then a year and a half later, opened my own tattoo shop. And so that was my that was my arrival into the adult world. In the military, you're an adult, but you get fed. There's somewhere to sleep, and you get the clothes and all that stuff. But now I'm in charge of myself. I have to figure out life for myself. And I was working temp jobs. I was working at Sunny Delight. Just watching the bottles go around and filling up with juice, just doing regular jobs. And um and uh, but but all this time thinking, art. How am I gonna do this art? I don't know what to do with this. And so when I first got my job as a tattoo artist, that's when I met Lord Yada. And Lord Yada, he's my brother-in-law, big time tattoo artist in Tri Cities Tattoo in East Point. And he'd been to art school. I can't remember what school he's been to, but he's taken a few classes. So to me, he's like this guy who's like over here. Like this guy knows things. And so I stuck to him, man. I just stuck to him. And my brother from the military, Akil, he opened a bookstore in Southwest Atlanta in the 90s. And that's where I saw your book. I knew your work before I knew you. And he had the Brother Man comics. And so I opened my shop in 97, 97. So by then I had seen your book by then. And because he had a bookstore and in Ben Hill. And I said, "Oh man, I gotta do this. I gotta do this." But I started with the first thing that I can monetize, which was go from paper to skin and get paid. I'm an artist now. Like I'm a working artist. That's it. I don't know how I'm gonna do the rest. but I'm on my way, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, man, that was my beginning into my art career. That was my beginning to Atlanta. And I didn't know how I was gonna do it. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I just knew that, I gotta figure it out. And that's why I never got married and I didn't have kids. Like I wanted to not be responsible for anyone. If I eat today, I eat today. And Taco Bell still had the 59-cent tacos and burritos and stuff. And so if I can find, $1, I'm gonna be okay. Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, because I just had to have this artist life. I just had to have it. Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think
Hmm.
that I think you brought us like full circle. Um, and I think the last aspect of it is what drawing from the soul means to you.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and we could take it home on that one.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You know, the Drawn to the Soul, and I watched all your episodes, and I've listened to mostly everything.
Appreciate it.
Yes, yes, it's amazing. I just there's there's what you said is that the double meaning and stuff. And you're drawing but also like there's a draw, like a pull. And I had this conversation with Yada, because he was and it still is. I just saw him the other day, Saturday, I think. He's like a big part of how I am as an artist who can understand myself. Because before him, I didn't know other artists, personally. And after him, now I have someone to talk to, and then because talking to him, I know how to talk to other artists, and have these conversations. And so him and I had this idea that creativity is like this primordial void, God, or the primordial energy, or the creator, whatever you want to call it. And exists out there. It's out there somewhere. There's somewhere. There's something. And that's some of us can get the message. Like there's a connection and a message. And sometimes when you draw something, by the time you put it out there, somebody has already drawn it and put it out there too. And they weren't in your house. You don't even know this person. And that's because there's that connection. Like that inspiration is gonna get out. The inspiration is gonna come, and one of us is paying attention that day and is gonna do it. And that's how it is. Like there's flashes of inspiration. You're doing something else. You're like, I need to finish this task, and then something slaps you. You're like, hold on, but I need to draw this other thing too. You're like, oh, and it's in that, and so we kind of in our minds made it to that, made it figured out that we have this connection, this a direct line, and it can be the soul, it can be the ka, the ba, the whatever you want to call it, the force, and the only thing that I know is that is not driven, this inspiration is not driven by fame, and I think Marcus said this, and or heard somebody in your talk say it, but that I think it was Marcus. If the comment makes it big and famous, great, but that's not my definition of success. Definition says that I did this. It's there. These paintings are there. This artwork is there. I did that. It may outlive me, and I'm okay with that. I was here for the certain amount of time, and I did this thing. Did somebody see it? Well, maybe, but that's not what inspired me to do it. There was something else that called me to do it, and I felt this need to do it, and I felt this duty to get it done. And after I did it, I'm like, okay, okay, that's cool, that's all right. That can stay here, and it can go on the show if it wants to. But it is really the the big plus was the experience of doing it, that moment that I spent doing it and stuff. And so that means that the this art thing does not come from a physical need, from a physical want. is not tied to time or space. It has to be more than that. And so when ever since we figured that out, I thought we've solved the secrets of the universe after that. That's it. That's what drawing from the soul is, man. It's that's it. You know, you kind of want to see it, you want to do it. Whatever happens, happens. And I got to a point now in my career, and this happened during the tattoo days, that I accept the compliments, but I don't feed off of them,
Yeah, yeah.
because I'm not gonna also either also or at the same time feed off of the criticism, and they're not gonna hurt me if they say, "Oh, that's ugly," or "That's dumb," or "What are you doing?" Like, I'm not driven by the outside thing. I'm a tool for this talent, and there's no other place where it can come from except soul.
Man, that was great. Actually, that one was so ethereal, man. Like, and I like it because I'm a very ethereal type person since I was a child. When it comes to the universe and the stars, Marcus talked about that, how we're all
Mm.
stars out here in the universe. And so when I think of that, when I think of our drawings, I always understand that they're coming from another place. It's something greater than us. So when we separate the it's funny when we separate the business aspect, we're just dealing with our soul. We're dealing with the spirit of connection. And that goes back to what you were saying in terms of how people they usually take advantage of us because we're connected to the spiritual. But then this on the flip side of survival, we now have to have the business. And I hope that's the one thing I want people to really get from this, um, is the understanding of really it's taking control of your power. You have a power
Yes.
and you want to take control of your power, not give it away to other people and to learn to be an authority within yourself that you are an authority. As and your journey I'm glad. I mean, I just saw you. I saw you on Facebook one day, and I said, "That's why I got an interview." Damn, because I think the interesting thing about interviews, and I know you know this because you have a whole wheelhouse full of interviews. Um, you really see people differently because how we meet people, we know them, dap them up, cool, see you around, man. But we don't really know each other. And then when you shared this story and you drew from the soul, you told us your journey from LA to Mexico and then coming to Atlanta, inspiring people, and then not even having all those tools in the beginning, which goes to show a lot of people say, I can't do this because I don't have. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you can do this. It starts with you just saying I can. And that was a perfect example. You showed us that. So on that note, thank you for taking the time to join us and Drawing from the Soul. I know this is definitely going to inspire a lot of people, and I encourage people to reach out to you and to test you, um, and see how you can even enrich and help their lives. So, on that note, to the Soul Squad out there, thank you again for joining us on another episode of Drawing from the Soul. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the routine, and we'll check y'all out next time on. Oh, and shout out to my co-host Kim Purejoy. She cannot make this episode. Actually, she's on a whole nother schedule now. Her schedule changed around, so she'll be intermittently on shows here and there. And we look forward to having her back on another episode very soon. So in the meantime, keep drawing from the soul. Peace.